everybody, and welcome back to part 2 of Drywall Hanging Tools / Tool Tuesday. This is Dan with Dan and Sarah Makers, and like I said, we are dealing with the power tool portion of hanging or installing drywall. So this could be new construction, renovation, not too bad. But as you can see, there are predominantly two types of tools here. There are fasteners, and then there are some cutting tools. And these are pretty much what you're going to see when you install drywall. Now, one thing that I didn't show because I don't actually have one, and the number one tool that you're probably going to see almost any drywaller carrying on a job site is an old milk crate. And they pile their nail bags, they pile their tools in a milk crate, and the reason they do that is they are a plastic mesh and basically a plastic molded mesh box, and all the drywall dust and all that junk that gets on everything when you're installing and working with drywall just falls through, and they leave it on the job site. So that's one tool that they have that I don't. But anyways, we'll get started here with probably the most universal, useful tool that, in my opinion, pretty much anybody should have. And we'll deal with this a little bit later in more depth. But this would be an impact driver. And these are a somewhat new tool, and they are just really the bee's knees, the cat's meow. I mean, they do everything. This one here, it's a Makita. Obviously, you can see it's seen better days, but the thing won't die. It just keeps going. So anyways, I have a extension driver here, a magnetic extension. What I've got in here is a little 1/4-inch Phillips driver bit with a dimpler. It's a one-piece thing. These aren't as common as you'd think they would be. I think you might be able to get them at Home Depot. But basically, this allows you to sink or drive in a drywall screw into drywall just the correct depth. It just drives it just past the surface of the face paper and doesn't break the paper. So they call them a dimpler. So that might be something to look for. I always carry just a standard bit that will get into really tight corners, because sometimes you have to really angle a screw in or get it really close to an adjoining wall to hit studs or backing or things like that. So a regular impact driver will do that. It's also really handy when you're working in renovation work, because sometimes you have really old, dry, hard lumber that you're trying to screw into, and you need something with just a little bit more torque, power, impacting force that will reliably drive those screws in. These will drive screws really, really fast, but as soon as you hit something really hard, they tend not to do so well. They just run at such a high speed that they don't have the torque and the ability to really hold that screw tip while you drive it in. So cordless driver is really nice, and they even have, cordless screw guns now that are battery powered. I carry plenty of extra number 2 reduced Phillips screwdriver tips. These are very nice in that they're extremely skinny, and Hilti makes really good ones. But if you actually look at the side of them, they're very skinny compared to a regular number 2. So these are nice to have. They seem to engage the screws better, and they come in little 10 packs. So if you can find somebody who sells Hilti, a Hilti dealer or authorized dealer, these are nice to have. As far as rotozips go, these are the cutters for cutting out drywall. This is an older Bosch one. This worked pretty well, but I did go over to a DeWalt. DeWalt's got some features that make it a little bit more user-friendly. You can pull the shroud off here quite easily. And one of the big nice deals is it's got 2 buttons on the chuck here that allows you to remove and tighten the bits without having to use any tools. So that's a really nice feature there. Also, it's got an adjustable depth gauge here. And then the power switch here, as you turn it on, you see this button sticks out. That's really nice when you're cutting, because a lot of times you're holding a chunk of drywall as you're cutting out around the door or window opening, and then you just take the rotozip down, you hit it with your hip or your nail bags or something, or on a wall, and you can shut it off with one hand, just bop it and it's off. And then you can control the big piece that you just cut out. Both of these will take 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch diameter bits. I carry a lot of extra bits. The bigger 1/4-inch diameter bits I tend to use for around window and door openings because they just seem to cut a little bit nicer for those really big cutouts. The smaller 1/8-inch bits, I carry two types. I carry an unpiloted bit, which is sharp all the way to the point and will cut all the way to the point. And then I carry a piloted bit, which is good for cutting around electrical boxes, receptacle boxes, things like that. So the only drawback of these tools is they come with a short power cord, like an 8-foot power cord. So opening these up and putting a 50-foot cord on them is not a bad idea in my opinion. I also carry the spare collet because you need a different sized collet, which is the little lock nut that holds the bit in, and the clamp, the acorn type thing that tightens down the different size bits. So you need your 1/8-inch collet and you need a 1/4-inch collet. Drywall screw guns. This is a 4,000 RPM DeWalt. This is a 4,500 RPM Hilti. And I believe Makita makes a 6,000 RPM. I think they call it the Rocket, which is even faster. These are designed when you are running them. You basically pull the trigger. They have a lock switch that will hold the trigger down, and these will run continuously. And the tip does not spin until a screw's been put on it and you actually push it up against a surface. And these are spring-loaded and engage a clutch once you're pushing. So you can leave them running, you pull screws out of your bags, you put it on, and then whap, and then you whap, and yeah, you like my sound effects there. So they're really fast. Like I said, if you get into really hard lumber, they're not so good, but they have an adjustable drive on the chuck here. You just twist it. It's got a little icon thing that shows you which way to go. And this is the dimpler up here on the nose. This DeWalt came with, the 8 or 10 foot cord, and I actually changed it out and put a 50 foot, I believe this is a 16 gauge cord. Yeah, a 16-2 cord. I put a 50 footer on here just for convenience sake. I also really like these little tough cuff cable clamps that you can get at Home Depot. I use them. They sell them in several different sizes. I use them for air hoses and extension cords. The Hilti Screw Gun, it's basically the same as the DeWalt, but on this one, I've taken the nose piece off just to show you, and they just snap on and off. And with this one, I would normally pull this out, this screwdriver attachment, and put this driver bit in here. And once I do that, then I can install this magazine, and it snaps on. They've got a newer style now, but this one's the one that I have. And this allows you to use these collated strips of screws here. And there are 50 screws in a strip. You basically feed them in, and they index one screw at a time. And as you pull the trigger, you lock it, you push it up against the surface, and it will actually drive that screw in. You pull away from the surface, and it will index the next screw, and then you just push. So basically, you can just go down a wall, a stud, and just push, drive, push, drive, push, drive, push, drive, or on a ceiling. They tend to be really handy on a ceiling, and these will attach to Hilti's cordless drywall screw guns too. Festool now makes an assembly like this with a cordless drywall screwdriver and a screwdriving magazine. But Festool, Fine, Hilti, they're all out of Germany, or that Liechtenstein, that area of the world. So I think there's a little bit of interaction between manufacturers. So there might be a little bit of overlap in who makes their screw strips. I believe Fine also makes a drywall screw gun with a magazine feed adapter. But anyways, like I said, I carry extra driver bits for these, and they tend to be really durable and a good deal. So there aren't a lot of power tools that you actually use for installing drywall. It's pretty basic. It's a pretty easy to cut, pretty easy to shape, mold, install material. So other than cutting stuff out faster than you can cut it by hand and installing it faster than you can nail it with screw guns, that's kind of the way to do it. They're There are a couple new tools that would be really cool to have. There are nail guns that will fire ring shank drywall nails, and you can actually install them into studs. There are also Max that sells the 400 psi nail gun systems or higher psi. They might even go up to like 500 psi. But Max Tool out of Japan, they make a nail gun that takes coils of screws kind of like this, and it actually fires the screw in about 75% of the way with a driver pin that's much like this Phillips driver, drives it straight in, and then it spins and drives the screw into the correct depth, spinning it in the rest of the way. So it's a really awesome, really fast screw installer. They sell them in Europe, as far as I know. I don't think they sell them in the States, unfortunately. So at some point in time, I want to try and like create some kind of friendship, partnership with somebody over in Europe or somebody in Japan and have them send me one, buy it through them. So that'd be pretty cool to actually get my hands on one of those, because I've never actually seen them here in the States. But yeah, as far as tools go, they're pretty basic. So I hope that kind of gives you an insight on the tools. They're simple. There are only a couple of them that you really need. And that should do it for today's Tool Tuesday. So until next time, this is Dan with Dan and Sarah Makers. Have a good one. Bye.